Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to hold off for about a minute before we start, just to let everyone kind of trickle in. So just bear with us, and then we'll start it off in about a minute or so. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds or so while we let everyone trickle in for this Lunch and Learn today. So just hold on tight for another 30 seconds or so. All right, everyone, I think we will get started now. So good afternoon. We're super excited to have you all participating in Keela's 3-day virtual conference that we're calling Plugged In. If you attended our morning sessions or our sessions yesterday, welcome back. And if you're just tuning in now, welcome and thank you for joining us. Before we begin this session, I just have a few housekeeping details to go over with you. So the first is that this Lunch and Learn session will be about 30 to 45 minutes in length, just depending on how many questions we get. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation in the Q&A box or in the chat box. We really want to make this session as interactive as possible and hope that we can really get a good conversation going. If you'd like to ask your question directly to our speakers by using your microphone, we will unmute you and you can ask that question directly to them. If you don't want to ask your question with your voice and you just want it read aloud and answered aloud, please let us know by sending your question in anonymously in the Q&A box or just by mentioning it in the chat box. All right, also just a reminder that all sessions will be recorded and you'll receive this recording along with the slide deck by the end of this week. All right, and with that, I'm excited to introduce our speakers for today's Lunch and Learn. So for the first half of the session, we will have Jude Shimer, who is the Associate Director of Client Operations at PatronManager. And Jude will be speaking about how to be proactive about learning your clients' pronouns and developing ways to use them consistently and with understanding and respect. And then in the second half of this session, we'll be switching gears just a little bit where we will have a live Q&A session with the Good Partnerships CEO and President, Cindy Wagman. Cindy will be answering all of your questions about how your nonprofit can thrive in today's fundraising climate. And with that, I will pass it off to you now, Jude.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jude. I'm going to share my screen momentarily. Hope everyone's having an excellent lunch. Alrighty. Okay, everybody should see, oh, actually, I think I'm at the very last slide. Here we go. Everyone should be see the title of the presentation. So I'm going to be doing a 5-minute Ignite session that was intended for 20 NTC. My email is there. You'll notice it's a personal email. I won't get into it. I'm going to be talking about a project that I did for PatronManager. Without further ado, here we go. So once, pretty recently, I was trying to donate to an organization that will remain anonymous. And their donation form required salutation with no gender neutral mix option. It was just these options. So I literally could not donate without choosing one. So I contacted the org. They said there was nothing they could do. And so I did not donate. Right after I became a member of a very famous civil liberties union, I received Ms. Jude Shimer's membership card in the mail, and I had not entered Ms. when I signed up. And it took 3 phone calls for them to remove Ms. from my name. So that was fun. Every call center employee calls me ma'am. When I go out to eat with a female friend, servers call us ladies. And to me personally, these are not actually a huge deal. It is a big deal to me, though, that I was recently asked to leave my gym locker room. Also, there was the person who came up to me after a conference that I had presented at to tell me how inconvenient my pronouns were to her personally. Or the folks I saw taking selfies, holding their noses in front of the all gender restroom sign at another conference. So imagine that everywhere you go, someone is gonna call you by the wrong name, or tell you you're in the wrong bathroom, or roll their eyes when you tell them your pronouns. And this is not just strangers on the street, but people in your industry, or possibly even your organization. So I am trans. I was assigned female at birth. I'm not a woman. I'm not quite identify as a man. I love singular they. I prefer that over male pronouns. And we've existed forever, but gender inclusive language, new and old, is really only still gaining momentum. So sibling, nibbling, which is niece and nephew, mix, partner. I love gender inclusive language because society has us tying ourselves into knots, trying to figure out what rigidly gendered language to use. But my cisgender coworkers get it. If you have a trans friend or a coworker, using gender inclusive language starts to feel normal and easy and important. So PatronManager is a ticketing system for arts nonprofits where I had directed the operations of our 4 client services teams. We want to respect our clients the way that we respect each other, which should be the goal of any organization. We don't actually collect titles like Mr. or Ms. for our clients. We don't use sir or ma'am on the phone. No one has complained. But until recently, we did not have a protocol for collecting and using our clients' gender pronouns like she, he, and they. But we had unanimous support across departments for that protocol. So PatronManager is built on the Salesforce platform and also uses Salesforce as its internal CRM. Salesforce does not come with pronoun fields by default, but it is highly customizable, so that was not going to be a problem. PatronManager hosts a client community where clients can collaborate with each other, they can ask and answer questions, and they can submit cases to the PatronManager client services team. And they can create a profile with a profile picture and a bio. And now pronouns. So this field did not exist when we created the community. I built this. Client services, of course, also needs to see the client's pronouns and to see each other's pronouns. So it's a staff large enough that you need to keep track. So altogether, I built 3 custom fields, an automated process. I tweaked some page layouts. This took a couple of hours altogether, and this is the result. If a client has chosen to enter their pronouns, they're front and center on the cases that client services use to interact with them. If you hover over a client's name anywhere in Salesforce, their pronouns are there. When staff hover over each other's names in Salesforce, their pronouns are there. And if there's a trans employee who uses different pronouns with clients versus coworkers, say they're not out yet, or say they're okay with using he or she with clients for simplicity's sake, but they prefer they with trusted friends and coworkers, I also created an internal pronouns field, which is only visible to staff. So since I launched this 6 months ago, 20% of active PatronManager community users chose to enter their pronouns. I was able to do this for PatronManager clients, but the clients control their own databases, and we don't mandate how they deal with gender data. So I also created some best practices. I wrote a post for the company blog. I created a help tab article and explains things like, there is a gender neutral salutation called mix, and please don't make salutation required, and collect pronouns on forms instead of gender. Other reasons why not to ask for gender on a form. So I've seen forms that ask for male or female when they really mean, would you like a fitted or non-fitted t-shirt? Which is not how to ask that question. If there's a compelling reason to ask for gender, you must explain why on the form and make it an optional write-in field. There also is a myth in nonprofit development that respect to all donors looks like Mr. and Ms. and Sir and Ma'am, because some donors may have come from a place or a time when that was the definition of respect. But no, if we want to attract a broad donor base, forcing gendered language is never respectful. So I started with an anecdote about being unable to donate because of a required salutation field. But I was at an event for another organization. Someone was helping me donate on a tablet, and they asked, would you like to enter an optional salutation? we have the gender neutral mix option available. And I was just so pleased. So no matter what system you use, Salesforce or anything else, it is imperative to create good policies on collecting pronouns and other gender data. And if anyone has questions about that, my personal email is right there. Please feel free to send me a message. I would love to talk to you further. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks so much, Jude. That was actually amazing. We do actually have a question that came in. I don't know if you'd be willing to answer that, but I think it's actually a pretty interesting one. Ines is asking, what are your suggestions for rolling out pronouns in organization email signatures? And you are on, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're good now.
Great question. So I recommend having email signature protocols, first of all, if you don't already. Great thing to develop first off, and to figure out where and in what format to enter pronouns. I recommend putting them right under the name. Some organizations don't want them to be there, want things like the title or the name of the organization to be right under the name. I don't agree. I think pronouns work best directly under the name. I also recommend putting the word pronouns : in front of it. So pronouns and then she, her, they, them, he, him, sie, their, any pronouns that people wish to implement. I also do recommend making it optional. So having folks have the option of having a with pronouns or without pronouns email signature. It's not terribly helpful to make it required for everybody, but I find that adoption is really great. So probably a lot of people will do it.
That's great. We do have another question that came in from Maddie. She's asking, do you have any tips on speaking face-to-face with clients when you aren't sure what preferred pronouns to use?
Also a great question. So when referring to someone in person, so say you're in a group of 3 and there's someone there you don't know what their pronouns are, and you realize that you're about to address them in the third person with somebody else, I think it's great to just turn and say, excuse me, what are your pronouns? I'd also say that it's great to be proactive about that. So if you're encountering a client at any kind of event and you have any control over this, I strongly recommend having pronoun badges available and using whatever pronoun someone has put on their badge. If you are talking about a person and they're not there, so you met someone, you do not know their pronoun, they are no longer there, and you're referring to them in the third person, there actually isn't a consensus on this. There are a variety of opinions. Some people say address everybody by they unless told otherwise. I don't actually agree. That's not the policy I go by, and most of my trans friends and coworkers are more of the opinion like it's all right to make an educated guess, but remain completely open to correction. So if someone corrects you, immediately change and go forward with that. Just don't be ready to make mistakes and be ready to be corrected and roll with it gracefully.
Great advice. I love that. All right, so we actually have a couple more. People are just very engaged with this. That's great.
I've pulled up the Q&A so I can take a look. So tips for how to handle clients and donors, etc., who do not respect my own pronouns. That is a tough one. And I'd say that it does sometimes vary organization by organization. And it can sometimes be a matter of the opinion of one's supervisor. So I think that that's important to talk about with coworkers, with supervisors, to come up with more of a group policy of what are we going to do if clients or donors are not respecting pronouns. I'd say that's definitely a situation where in any possible place to make sure that pronouns are very visible. And it sometimes, especially if it's really repeated or particularly insulting, like they're legit like refusing to use a pronoun, that might be a situation where someone with a fair amount of weight in an organization, so a supervisor, even an executive director, pull someone aside and talk about that. Great. Ooh, we have our grants ask for male, female tracking of our students. How can we go about expanding that? When gender is being requested for like demographic purposes, I usually recommend there being options for male, female, non-binary, other, and a write-in field. So if someone selects other, they have a place to actually write in their gender. This is if there's some need to, say, summarize by that in a report. The best is to just have it be a write-in field straight up. So if there's any opportunity to just have gender be write-in, no options, that's perfect. But if there's some kind of reporting database concern about there being, mismatched variances like female versus woman, then male, female, non-binary, other, and a write-in field is my recommendation.
Great.
So those are in the QA. I think that there are a few in the chat as well.
I believe there was, yeah.
Yes, so best way to approach someone if they're not respecting someone's gender pronouns, or should you say anything? Yes, it is great to say something. I think if the best thing to say, so you are speaking, someone is speaking to you about a third person and they're using the wrong gender pronouns. I think the best thing to say is, oh, they use this pronoun. Just exactly that. There's sometimes like a bit of a urge to have a really big conversation about it, or for there to be like a lot of apology or excusing. I think it's really appropriate to just be like, oh, by the way, they use they pronouns. And then if it turns into a longer conversation, it can turn into a longer conversation, but it doesn't have to start that way. Great. Wonderful. I think that is, I think that's it for the questions in the chat. Great.
Oh, there's one more from Maddie that just popped in.
Sure. Pronouns in person. Is this a risk? Here's, I'm going to answer sort of a larger question, which is like, what is polite and what is not polite about pronoun requests, pronoun mistakes? And I think that the biggest thing to remember is that everyone is always going to make mistakes, and everyone, like not everyone wants the same things. So some people love to have people ask their pronouns if they're not wearing a pronoun badge. Find that incredibly respectful and conscientious. Some people will not, and you can't know until you ask them. So I think that the best thing is to like give yourself a little bit of like, be patient with yourself, not feel as if it's a terrible thing to make a mistake. If someone is offended by something you do or say, just say like, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. And, let them make an alternate recommendation. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Wonderful, Jude. Well, that's been great. Everyone's been so engaged and everyone's thanking you so much. They said that they had just had a conversation about this. Some people even said that they updated their signature just now. So I'm really happy that this really rang true to a lot of people, and they really enjoyed this. So thank you so much.
So happy for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone.
And Cindy's clapping her. And I would like to introduce Cindy now. I'll pass it off to you, Cindy. We don't have any slides to share for her, so you'll just be able to see her lovely face.
Hey, everyone. And I apologize in advance because my 5-year-old keeps trying to video Facebook message me or something, and I'm worried he's going to pop in. But it is what it is. I want to start just by acknowledging how challenging things are for all of us right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of scariness, lots of emotions. We were talking about this before everyone hopped on the call or the webinar. So I just want to start because it is, it's hard. And I'm very interactive with these. So I would love for people to just take a second and introduce yourself in the chat. Just tell me like the organization you work for or did work for, if that is the case, and kind of what you do. just so I know who I'm talking to and can make sure we talk about things that are relevant to you. So I'll give you all a second to do that. And while you do, I just want to start by, again, acknowledging all of the work that you do. You know, we're in a sector, I don't know, I love the Fred Rogers quote, look for the helpers. And often you are the helpers in society. We are all working for organizations that are working to make the world a better place. And who's helping the helpers? So thank you. It's very hard times right now. And the work you're doing is really important. And whether or not you are on the front lines of, you know, figuring out support during this pandemic, or, you know, a small arts organization that you're really not sure what the future looks like, your work is really, really important and valuable. So thank you. We have Humane Society, School for the Deaf and Blind, Native American Rights Fund, Cystic Fibrosis Canada. So lots of really great, amazing organizations here. Center for Excellence in Nonprofits. So cool. Bird conservation, like all of this is amazing. Thank you. Thank you all for doing this work. It is more important now than ever, right? We know that the charitable sector and the nonprofit sector is so critical to the health and well-being of our society as a whole. That being said, everyone's a little scared about fundraising right now. And you know, rightfully so, we're scared about everything. And so I wanted to share some of the things that we've been seeing with our clients and then open things up for conversations. So the first thing is, my company, The Good Partnership, we specialize in helping small organizations, predominantly in two areas, fundraising and their systems and technologies. These are the two things that we see organizations ignore the most, because we're all doing this work because we want to change the world. Oftentimes our technology and systems just don't feel crucial or critical, and our fundraising feels icky or uncomfortable or not really what we're trained to do. And so we put those off. And what's happened in the last 2-ish weeks is that those two things have been thrust to the center of what we have to focus on, right? Organizations figuring out how to work remotely, how to do things and collaborate through technology. And of course, the organizations that have stronger fundraising programs are the ones that are going to come out the strongest through all of this. And so now is definitely not the time to bury our heads in the sand. Now is the time to figure out how we fix those things if they're not working for us, so that we can not just get through this, but come out stronger, more grounded in our community, and relevant. So the first thing is, don't stop, right? It's very easy, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people where it's like, well, I'm not on the front lines of like, I don't want to say fighting COVID, but supporting people who are most affected by COVID-19. So what we're doing is it's not urgent, it's not critical, like it's not that important right now. And that's not necessarily true. Your work existed before, it will exist after, and how you manage right now is important. So I want to give you an example of a client we have. They're a small arts organization, like under, I think their budget's around $300,000 to $500,000 a year. And they work with youth in after-school programs. So obviously their programs have come to a halt. They're not actually doing any direct service right now. And because so much of their funding was based on projects, they have some funding confirmed that they actually can't spend. So while they're looking at potentially laying off staff, but having all this designated funding, it's a really difficult place to be. I'm not sure if any of you can relate to that. So what we did with them is we actually created a letter and customized it and reached out to all those project funders and said, you know, we need your help right now to keep the lights on. Like, if this organization is to survive this pandemic, we really need to use your program funding for core operations. And so far, everyone has said yes. And some people have even increased their giving. So it's a really, and we're seeing this a lot. I want to say Elisha said they're seeing that too. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. So that's one thing. Like, this is an organization, when this happened, they wanted to not talk to anyone. They were just like, no one cares about us right now. We're not important. Let's just hide until this is over. And we said, no, you need to reach out to your funders. You need to have those conversations. And their prognosis and their outlook going forward is much, much, much more positive than they ever imagined. And then we have another client who we were in the process of planning a big event, their sort of annual fundraising event for, and this happened. The event was scheduled for the end of April. And so we created, again, we drafted an email, but we customized it to the different groups that we wanted to reach out to. So sponsors, ticket buyers, etc. And asked them and said, this is an organization that works with the homeless population. And so they actually really are in direct service right now more than ever. And so we asked them to convert their sponsorship and tickets to straight donations. And again, so far the response has been exceptional. You know, people are willing to support this work. So, you know, talk to your existing funders. Definitely, if you are doing work that is urgent right now, it is such an important time to ask for help. People are looking for ways to support their community. Despite, you know, some of the early reports of toilet paper hoarders, we're seeing more and more people looking for ways to be generous and support their community, because we are all in this together. And I think that that's one thing this pandemic has really showed us, is that we can think about our community during really hard times. If you're not working the front lines right now, I still think it's a really important time to continue to build those relationships, ask for money when it's appropriate, talk to your funders one-on-one if you can, you know, at any level. I'm not just talking about the big foundations. You know, if you have a small donor base and you want to reach out to your $50, $10 donors, I highly encourage that. People want to hear from you. They want to know what you're doing. They care. So keep sharing stories. Lots of people are pivoting to how they can deliver service online, not just to their core population, but to their donors and community as well. So now is the time to really, I don't want to say step up, but to not shy away from doing this work. And if you need support, ask for it. So that's sort of the high level. I want to open it up to questions, because we're definitely getting lots of those. Generally, I've been doing a lot of these webinars this week and last week. So yeah, tell me, like, tell me in the chat, and we can also unmute you if you want to chat a little bit. But what's weighing on your mind? I mean, yeah, how can we help? We'll give everyone a minute to do that. Okay. How should communications/marketing support fundraising and asks for support right now? What are some best practices? So it depends, which you're going to hear me preface most of my answers with, it depends. And Chris, I'm just going to see if I know. You are Reception House, Waterloo Region. Shout out to a fellow Canadian. Help government-assisted refugees coming into that area. So I imagine that you're still working through this. And so I would say like both your communications and marketing and your fundraising should really be focused on storytelling, right? So if you are looking at continuing to fundraise or not, regardless, you need to be telling stories. So how is this pandemic affecting the refugees coming into the KW area? Like, what does that look like? What's changed for them? You know, we've really seen a lot of support ramp up and we know storytelling is absolutely the best way to build a fundraising program. So keep telling those stories. And then I'm a big believer in taking content and then repurposing that in tons of different ways. So we're doing that with one client now where we're collecting the stories. We'll turn that into a donor email update, social media posts, blog post, you know, anything, anywhere else where you can put that. So the big thing is, I don't want you doing like a million different things, but take 1 or 2 or 3 good stories and really put them out in the community in a meaningful way. I mean, marketing, I don't know anyone who's spending a lot of money on marketing right now, but the other thing I've been recommending is, if you're not asking, how do you create, like so many organizations, especially with digital right now, and everyone's talking about, well, this is your push to go digital. They are talking about, well, you know, we don't even have donors who are giving online, or we don't have email addresses. So now is a really good time to build your email list. And my favorite person where I've learned this from is Amy Porterfield. Has a great podcast and website, but there's tons of other people. But really the idea is, what can you do to serve the broader community and population right now and educate them, and in exchange collect email addresses. So I will give you an example, like an organization that works with children now is putting out stuff around, hey, here's like 5 things you can do at home with your kids as they're going, you know, bananas right now. And you know, to download it, you just have to give your name and email address. And that's a really good way to build your list, and then engage those people. So communicate with them on a regular basis. So those are a few things that the comms team can do to support fundraising right now. Does that help? Let me know if you have any qualifying comments on that. And then anonymous, we've received many donations of prizes for a silent auction raffle for an event that we canceled. What are my thoughts on converting that to an online auction? So definitely love that idea. So my only caveat again is it depends. So if the people who come to your event and who are on your, you know, if you don't have an email list and you have people who come to your event who are 80 years old, it's going to be really hard right now to get them to bid on an online auction. But if you're, you know, if people already like do things digitally with you, or are of a demographic that is comfortable with that, then 100%. So if you feel like you can get it out into the world and reach a decent number of people where people will engage and bid, absolutely. Do I have recommendations on a platform? I actually do not. We're generally quite platform agnostic. It really depends on the existing tools that the organization has. We're big believers in integration. So tools that can talk to your donor database and CRM would be the first thing I would look for. I'll throw that. Mel, does Keela do auctions, or do you have a partner who can plug into the Keela system?
I wish I could say we do. Unfortunately not. No, that's something that we would love to look into. Unfortunately, we're building other things right now, so won't be anytime soon, but it's definitely probably going to be very popular these days.
Yeah. So I would start with, like, what is your core, we call it sort of the skeleton system. So whether it's Salesforce, Keela, Blackbaud, which is not my favorite, but whatever it is, what integrates well with those, because you definitely want to be able to take that information and have it move seamlessly into your database, so that you can obviously track everything, communicate, right? Like having everything streamlined is really important, generally speaking. All right, Samantha, hi. Do you have any best practices regarding processing mail, checks, or thank you letters remotely? Great question. And the interesting thing is, an aside, we are seeing mail houses close right now because I'm in Ontario. They just shut down non-essential businesses. Jude's in New York. I'm sure it's pretty much the same there. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, we'll still receive mail, but we're going to have to look at different ways of asking for support. In terms of processing, I mean, I can tell you, again, this is one of those things where if we haven't figured it out, now is the time we're going to figure it out. So my only thing would be, how do you pick up the mail? So can you call the post and ask them to forward mail to one person? Sometimes they will do like a redirect. Obviously, no one's going out into their offices right now, or at least not where I am. And if you can't do that, then maybe once a week, I think is reasonable. But it depends where your mail is held, like if it's secure and all that kind of stuff. So figure out, but if you can get it sent to one person, my corporate bank account for my company, we do all of our banking digitally. So I can take a check I have in person and upload it to the bank directly on my phone. It's free, or like a part of your bank, should be part of your banking package. And that way you can deposit checks, no problem. You don't have to go into the bank or interact with people right now. Thank you letters, again, if you have email addresses, I would definitely do that, like auto send emails. I know in various different platforms you can do that right away automatically when you enter gifts. The other thing that I would say is, like, now is the time to have those thank you letters really shine. One of my favorite tools is something called Bonjoro, Bonjoro. And basically you can create, like, it will send little customized videos to people. So you can take your list of donors. It will either integrate through something like Zapier, or you can import it into Bonjoro. And then it will prompt you, okay, do a video for this person, do a video for that person. And then you just record it and it sends it for you. And like a 1-minute thank you video just goes so far right now, where people are feeling disconnected and all of that. So there's different tools. We also use something called Loom, LOOM.com. It's less automated, but you can still create it basically auto uploads the video, so you don't have to worry about putting something on YouTube and then like all that. It just does it right away and it gives you a link. So you can do that. But really think about how you take any stewardship best practices you know of and turn them into something digital. And as an aside, Bonjoro, I don't get anything for this, but I do know that they are offering charities a discount. Just say you heard of them through the Good Partnership, and I think they have a free plan, but if you do want to have more volume and want a paid plan, I think you'll get 30% off. So that's a tool I love. Loom is free right now. I think they've increased all their limits so that you can use that. Those are two. I'm sure there are more where you can connect with people via video and really say thank you without having to, like, or are they going to answer the phone, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Sorry. I feel like that was a long-winded answer. Yeah.
I actually have a question. So who is it? Chris said that he loves the idea of building our list right now, and you kind of gave an example of what people could be doing in their day. I guess people probably do have a bit of downtime right now. So I'm wondering if you had any suggestions of what organizations could do right now, or curious to know what everyone else is maybe doing in their downtime.
Yeah. So I'm seeing like right now the world is being pulled into extremes. On the one hand, there are people like myself who I don't have time to breathe right now or space to breathe. You know, we're busier right now trying to serve our community and help the nonprofit sector. And I have 2 kids at home, and my partner is part of a crisis response team that's trying to get funding out to people as part of the package. So we're like, what? We're this extreme. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people who have time. And definitely now is the time to start figuring out those, like, they've been on my to-do list for a while and I haven't really thought of them. So, or gotten to them. So list building, the first thing you need to know is, what does your community want or need from you right now? So I always approach it from a place of service. How are we adding value? Email addresses have value to people. Now more than ever, after everyone got like bazillion and one, like, here's our response to COVID-19, you know, people are not just giving their email away to everyone. And so how do you figure out what you can give them in exchange for that email address that meets their needs or provides some service in a meaningful way? That to me is the number one thing organizations often miss when they look at list building. And so if you're not sure, think about your mission, what you do, and the skill sets you have that you can share. But feel free to like reach out to a few people and ask them, how can we help you right now? And turn that into a downloadable PDF or a free webinar that's pre-recorded that they can access anytime. You know, there's so many examples, or like, you know, you can drip email to people where they get, you can automate an email sequence. So every day for 5 days, you get a new smoothie recipe, because we're all trying to not, you know, maintain our health while we're stuck at home. So that's obviously probably not a charitable example, but you know, what is your community need right now, and turn that into an opportunity where you can give them something of value in exchange for your email address. And the technical side of it obviously will depend on the tools that you use, but that's where I would start, and then go from there. So whatever you're using for your email marketing, I know it's built into something like Keela, and you can create custom forms. That's a really easy way to just get started. You create a standalone page on your website. It doesn't even have to be part of your navigation, just kind of like we call it a landing page. And just be like, here's what you get, give us your email and we'll send it to you right away. And you can automate the sending of that content. So that's really what like list building simplified, I would say. But the most important thing is to start from a perspective of service and how are we adding value right now. Chris had a follow-up question. What should fundraisers keep an eye out for over the next few weeks? Any predictions? To be honest, right now we are in uncharted territories. You know, a lot of people are comparing this to like the 2018 financial crisis. I think very quickly we're going to see that's similar but not the same. This is completely unprecedented. Some of the things I've been hearing from my colleagues, so people are updating their wills. People are afraid of what their own mortality is looking like right now. So if you do, shout out to my friend Paul Nazareth from the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, but he mentioned this the other day, and it's really true. So now is the time when people are updating their wills. And so if you've been thinking about plan giving, not a bad time to have those conversations or send out some materials in a respectful way. But definitely people are thinking about their mortality. I think people will think about their legacy and what's important. So maybe, you know, just people really honing in on what's important. How do I prioritize? And I think the more your organization can be part of that, of like, how is this a part of my life in a meaningful way, the better you will fare. Yeah, I think those are, but to be totally honest, like right now I'm in a day-to-day roller coaster. I don't know about everyone else, with both the emotions and like what's coming, what's happening, how are people behaving. Every day there's news, every day, like you think something's secure and then it's not, or, you know, you're surprised by things that you thought would not happen and are happening. So, yeah, it's a little all over the place.
Well, thanks, Cindy.
You're welcome.
It has been very insightful, and I'm sure this has helped a lot of people because there's just tons of questions right now, and I'm hoping we were able to get to most of them, if not all of them. So thank you, everyone, for sending us your thoughtful questions, and especially thank you to you, Cindy and Jude, for your presentations today. They were super insightful, and we're really happy to have you here. I don't know if you had any last words for everyone before I sign off.
One thing, just I forgot that Keela is partnering with us because we know for small organizations in particular, this whole fundraising thing is really, they haven't figured it out that well to begin with. And now is actually the time when you really need to. So we've partnered on a scholarship for our Flipside Fund. We have a program called Flipside Fundraising, and Keela is sponsoring a scholarship in that program that closes next Thursday. So I'll put that in the chat if anyone is interested. It's flipside.thegoodpartnership.com/scholarship, because we really know how important it is to figure out your fundraising. So if you're a small organization and this pandemic has got you spinning your wheels and you're totally overwhelmed, we have some resources for you. And yes, you can definitely contact us. I'll speak for, well, Jude already shared their email, but I'll put mine in the chat as well.
Thanks, Cindy. Jude, did you have any last words?
Only thank you so much, everybody. Keela,
welcome.
Mel, Sam, every participant, Cindy. It was great.
Thank you. All right, and just one last quick reminder that our next session today will start at 1 p.m. PST or 4 p.m. EST today, so that's in about 30 minutes or so, and this session will be led by Mary Joyce from Do Big Good, where she'll be presenting her session that's titled Impact Cascades, the Adaptive Approach for Evaluation. And if you haven't already registered for that, we've posted that link into the comments section below. And thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again at 1 p.m. and tomorrow. All right. Bye.